James, hello.
Hi, Leo.
James, it's been another fast month. Wondering, is there anything been happening in the markets, anything to talk about over the last 30 days?
Yeah, well, I suppose the biggest news item that's been dominating the headlines over the last month is, of course, the turmoil that's been going on in Afghanistan. But that hasn't really had a significant impact on markets. They've continued to trend upwards. So the FTSE 100, for example, is up another 2%. European stocks are up another 2.6%, and the US is up 3%. Even emerging markets are up more than 2% in the last month. This is despite sort of some ongoing fears surrounding economic growth. Commodities have taken a bit of a hit in the last month because there are fears that the rebound in the demand for materials might just slow down a bit. So things like copper, iron ore and oil, they've all ended the month with negative returns, as have gilts or UK government bonds. After a couple of months of doing really well, they've just slipped back a bit in the last month. But equity markets on the whole have continued to do well.
Thanks, James. So we've had a few wobbles amongst a steady climb. How have the Courtiers Funds been responding to all of this?
Well, we're continuing to sort of manage diversified funds, with options being very expensive at the moment due to all the volatility we saw as a result of COVID. We've been looking at other ways of sort of adding protection into the funds. So as part of the multi-asset funds, we have a diversified stock portfolio with stocks chosen from our quants model, which chooses stocks based on their value characteristics. Obviously, an analyst will also look at the stock before it goes into the fund. And our broad exposure comes from futures. So we've got exposure to the FTSE 100, the Stock 600 in Europe, and our US exposure. Historically, it's come from the S&P 500 index, where because that index is currently dominated by those expensive tech companies, we've sort of split between the S&P 500 and the Russell 1000 Value Index, which has a lot less exposure to those expensive companies.
Sure. James, thank you. So over the month ahead in September, is there anything that courtiers and investors generally should be looking out for?
Well, I suppose markets at the moment are still being driven by the ongoing pandemic, but even though cases have still been quite high in the last couple of months, markets have still been sort of trending upwards. So I think they're starting to look through to the end of this pandemic. The economy is also recovering quite strongly. We're still expecting to see sort of bouts of volatility. We're hoping that our diversified funds will minimise the impact that investors will see. But it's difficult to know exactly where markets are going, but obviously we're monitoring them all the time.
Same old story.
Absolutely.
All right, James. Well, as ever, thank you for your time this month, and I'll look forward to catching up with you next month.
Thanks, Leo.
All the best. Take care.